Hinduja will be stimulating today's orientation. The organizing committee of Hinduja Model United Nations aims to address and clear each and every question that you may have. With this, I would like to commence the orientation. Some of us present here might have an idea of what the United Nations is, and some of us might just have heard the name of it. For this, let me start with the story of this organization came into being. In 1945, the world was in ruins. World War II was over, and the world wanted peace. To prevent another world war and to rebuild the world, 51 countries gathered in San Francisco that year to sign a document. The document was a charter which gave birth to a new organization, the United Nations. It's been 75 years since the United Nations was formed, and to date, it continues maintaining international peace and security. According to the United Nations, Model UN is an activity for those who are interested in learning more about how the UN operates. The United Nations has said, and we quote, many of today's leaders in law, government, business, and the arts, including the UN itself, participated in Model UN as students. The Model United Nations provides you with the opportunities to engage with like-minded people, discuss the potential solutions to the world problems, and broaden your thought process. We, we all have a curious learner inside us. Model United Nations is a place for that curious learner inside you. Hinduja Model United Nations is the first of its kind in our college, and we aim to involve you all in the issues that are haunting the world at present and provide solutions for the same. This year, Hinduja Man will be stimulating two committees, United Nations Human Rights Councils, with the agenda to discuss human rights violations of ethnic minorities, and Lok Sabha with the agenda to review the Farmers' Bill in the light of farmers' protests on the 4th of April 2021. And encouraging us to try new things. I would like to invite our dear principal, Dr. Meenu Madlani ma'am, to share a few words.
Thank you, Tarang. A very good morning to one and all present here. Dr. Antara Sanavle, faculty members, today is a very important day for all of us because not only that you have orientation of Hinduja Model United Nation, but it's one more opportunity for all of you to understand the concerns in the society. At Hinduja, we have always tried, the faculty members, to give opportunities to students, exposure to students, and the vision of the management is to see that we create enlightened citizens who will be running the society in future. So this platform is provided to you that you understand the concerns in the country at international level, give your opinions, go for discussions, and always have a positive approach. There are many, many concerns, not only in India, all over the world. But if we are positive, there is always a solution. And I think you all are very positive. And this year, I was very happy that we received very good response when Dr. Antara took the initiative to introduce the Hinduja Model United Nation. I was a little worried that it's pandemic time, students are not around. I mean, it's just online that we will be, promoting the program, how it's going to be. But we were very happy to see that all you students really participated and we got an overwhelming response. And I want to really appreciate the efforts of Dr. Antara Sunavle and the faculty members who have taken all the initiative to start Hinduja Model United Nation in our college. I convey my best wishes and hope to see good programs and good concerns which you all will be discussing and providing good positive solutions. Once again, congratulations and all my good wishes. Over to you, Taran.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. Next, I would like to introduce the lady who has backed us with constant support and has been the driving force for the organizing committee, a vice principal, a vice principal SFC, BMS course coordinator and convener, Dr. Antara Sunavne ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tarang, and very good morning to all of you. In continuation to what our principal madam said, I would just like to add here that this initiative, of course, I have taken the lead, but this is entirely driven by students, madam. I wanted to inform you this. Priyansh Tiwari, who has been already associated with MUN, and there are other students who have been attending MUN for other colleges and the other institutions. They were constantly behind me that we should start in Hinduja. And I was also little speculating about this, that whether this concept will work in a college. And again, starting at a time like a pandemic wherein we are just in touch through this computer screen. And the students gave me the assurance that they will do it. And I must congratulate Priyansh, the general secretary. He has taken a lot of efforts. In fact, I must say, I have just given that nod of yes, that yes, you go ahead. And this entire team of students, they are managing everything, even this orientation program, calling the delegates, providing the entire platform to our students, managing the interviews for selecting the committee, the secretariat. Entire thing is done by students, and we are really very proud to see this, because in Hinduja, we are always, as madam said, we are always here to empower our students. We want our students to stand strong with us. And this is exactly, this is happening in MUN. And we want you all to be the better citizens of India. And for that, as our tagline said, we have to come, discuss, and we have to absorb. So the same platform we are providing you, and we want you all to take the optimum utilization of this. Even online has a lot of advantages. We are able to, connect with each other from several places. So we must take the advantage and we must go ahead. And this is the very first year, and with such huge response we have started, I am very sure that very soon in coming years, we will trademark our MUN for Hinduja. And all the best, students. Wish you all the best.
Priyansh, really congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I would now like to introduce our secretariat, who has been thoroughly involved in making this conference a productive one. Leadership is about vision and responsibility, not power. A leader is dealer in hope, and I would like to invite a leader who has genuinely been a hope to the whole secretariat, the Secretary General of Hinduja MUN, Priyansh Tiwari, to share a few words.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to our Vice Principal and Principal Ma'am for always being there, being that support and having us, create this committee and work towards the conference. Juggling with thoughts as to what to speak in this opportunity, I had ultimately come to share, I thought I could share an anecdote with you. Back in early days, when I was in class 9th, I was a stubborn backbencher who could not, who could do all the mischievous things when the heads were all turned in the opposite direction. So that's an advantage of being a backbencher, that no head is towards you. So So you could do all those mischievous activities. But as I was dragged in front of the students, who are all my colleagues, I've been there for an year with them, I could not utter a word. I could not frame a sentence. Some people sophisticatedly call it introvert, but that was totally underconfidence. I remember when I was pushed for my first MUN conference, uh, things then have changed for me. I remember the adrenaline rush when I was given the first podium to, give my first speech there. I could not frame a sentence even then. My chair who pushed me again, take your time and go ahead. This is your podium now. I believe in class of 100, we can always see 20 such kids at least, as of me, who are in such position. I believe MUN conferences act as a breakthrough for such students. And I can firmly assure you that the organizing committee of Hinduja MAN is going to be that support for such kids and students. And the Hinduja MAN 21 conference is going to be such breakthrough conference for you all. I again thank you for all your presence here in the orientation, and would like to see you all in the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priyansh. Leadership is about inclusiveness and reaching out, not dominance and power. The key to successful leadership today is influence, not authority. And with this, I would like to invite the Deputy Secretary General of Hinduja MAN, Farshid Daruwala, to share a few words.
Thanks, Tarang. Firstly, I would like to, good morning, Principal Ma'am, Antara Ma'am, and all the faculty members. As Priyansh correctly said, when I was in school, I was really, really shy, and I couldn't be, as in I had the ability to speak, but I never got the chance to speak because I was obviously really, I didn't have the confidence at that time. But being at the forefront, when I was fortunate, when I was given my first ever MUN conference and I was given the podium to speak, did I actually realize that I have a flair for it, and ended up winning it. And I won Best Delegate back then. So I realized one thing that day, that you got to have to try every single thing in life. If you don't, you'll actually never know what exactly you're capable of. So I would urge all the delegates that we have, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them, even if they are new. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Farshid. Commencement is not possible without communication. This person can spread the news far and wide. I introduce our Under Secretary General for Communication and Public Information, Avinash Pawar. Coffee in one hand, confidence in other. Management is doing things right, and we can always count on him to make things right. I introduce our Under Secretary General for General Assembly Affairs and Conference Management, Dhruv Mehta. Creativity doesn't wait for anyone. It fashions its own perfect moments out of ordinary ones. They say actions speak louder than words. And with this, I, Tarang Jha, introduce myself at the creator's head. Technology is best when it brings people together, and she literally binds the group. I would now like to introduce our technical head, Vanesha Sampath. Now I introduce to you all our external board who have helped us pave the path for this conference: Dimple Jangir, Anupriya Rakshit, Tanmay Patil, and Chinmay Rajiv. Moving on, with much ado, I would hand over today's sessions to our speakers who are also our executive board members. Ms. Nipa Darod, a third-year law student pursuing BLS LLB. She has won several months and youth parliaments. And Ms. Bianca Chetier, a student at St. Xavier's, Mumbai. She is an avid reader and a language enthusiast. I would like to request all the participants to kindly ask their doubts at the end of the session. Over to you, Bianca and Nipa.
Thank you very much, Tarang. Firstly, good morning, everyone. Greetings to the principal and vice principal, ma'am, and thank you for inviting us today. So, as Tarang rightly mentioned, I am Bianca Chetiar. I'm a student in the first year from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. I've been a part of the MUN circuit for about 2 years now. It is my honor and privilege to serve as a vice chairperson for Hinduja MUN in UNHRC. So, all right, so as we're here today, I believe most of you are first timers, hence we'll be starting with the basics. I'll be covering what is a MUN, the relevance of a MUN, and the rules of procedure. And Nipa will be covering how to research and the various aspects associated with it. Before we start, let me just inform you all that we'll be having a question and answer session at the end. So feel free to ask us if you have any doubts. Okay. So when we come to what is a MUN, firstly, MUN stands for Model United Nations, and it is an academic simulation of the United Nations where students, they play the role of delegates from different countries and attempt to solve real world issues with the policies and perspectives of the assigned country. Now, for example, a student may be assigned the United Kingdom, and they will have to solve global topics such as nuclear, non-proliferation, or climate change from the policies and perspectives of United Kingdom. Explaining this in more detail, now for an example, at Hinduja MUN itself, we have two committees, that is Lok Sabha and UNHRC. Now in UNHRC, if one of you has been allotted Australia, for instance, you will have to read the agenda at hand and later conduct discussions on the topics followed by solutions and policies to solve the issue. Now, you must remember that you are delegates, you are representing a country, hence you'll have to make sure to maintain decorum at all times. I believe we've covered the topic of what is a MUN. Or now coming to why is a MUN relevant to us students? So, Model United Nations, it promotes the discussion of topics that can be considered a taboo or inappropriate for a conversation at least. Now, for an example, in a time when students are often told not to discuss political or social issues in school, MUN is a platform which allows students to participate in discussions about the problems within today's society. Or some issues that have been discussed at various Model United Nations conference include forced labor, illicit arms trade, sustainable energy, religious intolerance, various bills passed in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, and many more. So typically students are unable to discuss such topics like these with their peers for fear of being ostracized or creating a conflict. However, MUN is a platform which creates a forum for these specific issues to be discussed. Although students may have to fight for policies against their own beliefs during committee session, MUN it allows us to form and develop our opinions by presenting all sides to a particular issue. This is very important, I believe. Now, this is a gist as to why MUN is relevant to us in the current day and age. All right. So now coming to the most important part of our MUN, that is the rules of procedure. Now, one thing you'll have to be aware is that there are various rules of procedures, such as the UN for MUN, Thai MUN, HMUN, and many more. But today I will be explaining the UNA USA rules of procedure in brief. As I already mentioned before, that there are various rules of procedure, and every executive board member will follow the rules of procedure which suits them the most. But let me tell you, no need to worry here, because before any committee starts, the executive board member, they will always make it a point to explain the rules of procedure that they are following, and they will clarify your doubts on the same if you have any. So now coming to the UNA USA ROP. So when we start the procedure, we first start with a roll call. Now, what is a roll call? Like in our college or in our school days, as we've had attendance, right, to mark you, in the same way we have the roll call. Now you can give in your roll call via two methods. First one being present and second one being present and voting. I will be telling you all the difference between both of them in the latter part. As in, where do we know when it is important as to why we've given our marking as present or present and voting. So now once the roll call is done, we announce the simple majority in the committee. Simple majority would be 50 plus 1 amongst all the delegates who are present. And simple majority is used for your motions to be passed. Now, when you're in the committee, you will be raising motions for discussing various aspects of the agenda. And for that motion to pass, you need simple majority. So after the simple majority has been established, the executive board will be asking the delegates, are there any motions on the floor? And at that time, we would be specifically looking for motions to set the agenda. Now at UNHRC or Lok Sabha, we have only one agenda at hand. So any delegate can raise a motion to set the agenda. One thing all of you have to make sure is that when you're raising a motion to set the agenda, make sure to read out the agenda in its exact verbatim. That is very important. So after the motion to set the agenda has been raised, the executive board then recognizes delegates to raise a motion for formal debate. Now I'll be telling you all the procedure as to how we'll be going. Now in the UNA USA rules of procedure, we'll be having two types of debates. First one being the formal debate and the second part being an informal debate. Now coming to a formal debate consists of your general speakers list. In short, that is a GSL speeches. Now in a general speakers list, usually you give your stance on the agenda, what your country has performed, what your country is willing to do, or in case you want to point out various other facts or question any other delegates, a general speakers list is used for that. Now for a general speakers list, after the motion to open formal debate has been raised, the executive board will be recognizing delegates. In the sense, when you want to give your name to be added to the general speakers list. Now about the GSL. A GSL can be set for any time between 60 seconds to 120 seconds. Now while raising the motion, the delegate will have to mention as to what time do you want the per speaker's time to be. That is, it can be anywhere between 60 to 120 seconds. Okay. Yes. So now after your speech is done in your, that is your GSL speech. Now suppose the committee has set the time to 90 seconds. That is, you'll want your GSL list speech to be for 90 seconds. And for instance, let's say that you complete your speech at around 60 seconds. Now, what will you do with the remaining 30 seconds that you have in time? So for this, we have the provision of yields. Now, what is a yield? You have three types of yields. First one being yield to another delegate. Second is yield to questions. And third one is yield to the chair. So now when you want to yield for taking the first point into consideration, that is yield to another delegate. Now when you want to yield your time to another delegate, that is a 30 seconds which you had remaining. You will yield that time to another person, and that delegate will take the time and will start with the speech or the points they want to make. One thing you have to remember here is that when you yield your time, you will have to take that delegate's permission beforehand itself. If you do not ask the delegate their permission, you cannot yield your time there. That is one aspect. Coming to yield to questions. Now, if you want to yield your 30 seconds to questions, the executive board will accept it, and later on they will ask the committee as to who wishes to question you on the speech made. So that is when you will be, if there are any questions for you, you will be recognized and you can give in your answer and so on. And now coming to the third yield, which is yield to the chair. Yield to the chair basically is nothing but wherein you yield your time to the executive board and we move on to the next speaker. Okay. So these are the various aspects of the formal debate. I repeat again, formal debate consists of the general speakers list. And in your GSL speeches, if you have time left, you can yield it to any of the three which has been mentioned. Now coming to the informal debate.
Excuse me. What
Yes.
exactly do we have to speak in the GSL speech? Can
All
you
right.
please share?
Yes, I'll do that. Okay. Also, before we move on, I'd just like to tell you all we'll be having a question and answer session at the end. You all can drop in your questions and we'll be addressing all of them together. But since a question has been come up now, I'll be addressing that. In a GSL speech, you firstly talk about your country's stance on the topic. That is what your country has previously done, what your country is willing to do, or you can also talk about what are the topics you as a delegate wish to discuss in the committee and what are the solutions you propose. These are few of the things one includes in their GSL speeches. I believe that has answered your question. Now coming to the informal debate. Now, as I already mentioned, the informal debate consists of two parts. First one is the moderated caucus, and the second one is the unmoderated caucus. Now, a moderated caucus in layman's term is wherein you discuss a small part of the agenda. Now, for instance, we take the agenda at hand is violence faced by women. Now, in your moderated caucus, you will discuss the various types of violence faced against women, the causes of the violence, if there are any actions taken by the UN, and all of those. So I repeat again, a moderated caucus is wherein you discuss the various subtopics of the main agenda. Now, how do we move into a moderated caucus? So once the debate has been opened, that is a formal debate, and after a few general speakers list speeches are done, the executive board will be asking the committee if there are any motions. That is when you raise your hand to raise a motion. Now the verbatim to raise a moderated caucus would be: the delegate of XYZ country would like to raise a motion to suspend formal debate and enter into a moderated caucus for the total time being XYZ minutes and per speaker's time being XYZ seconds. Now, another thing you have to remember is that a motion for the maximum time you can raise for a motion for the moderated caucus would be 20 minutes. You can adjust your per speaker's time according to the committee's convenience, but the total time maximum should be for 20 minutes. And after the moderated caucus has come to an end, you can always raise a motion for extension. A motion for extension means wherein you want to extend the moderated caucus for a certain amount of time. But another thing to remember here is that you can raise a motion to extend only 50% by the total time. That is, if your total time has been 20 minutes before, you can raise a motion for extension only for 10 minutes. Okay, that has been one part of the informal debate. Coming to the second part, which is the unmoderated caucus. Now, the verbatim to raise the unmoderated caucus would be: the delegate of XYZ country would like to raise a motion to enter into an unmoderated caucus for the total time XYZ minutes. In an unmoderated caucus, you don't have this per speaker's time. The reason being, during an unmod, the committee is free to discuss whatever they want. At this point of time, the executive board will not be intervening in between and will not be moderating here. Unmod is only for the delegates to discuss what they want to do, how they want to proceed with the committee. In layman's term, it is an informal break. Let's put it that way. Okay? Yes. So as we're done with the debate part of view, that is a formal debate and the informal debate. Now we'll come to the documentation part of a committee. Now the documentation is basically the paperwork is a paperwork that the committee comes up with at the end of the day. Now, one thing all of you have to remember is that the paperwork depends on the committee you're in and what does that committee's mandate allow. For example, if you are in UNHRC, the committee's mandate allows you to make a draft resolution. But at the same time, if you are in United Nations Women or All India Political Parties meet, that committee's mandate will allow you to make a report. So before you are allotted to any committee or it, please do research on what your committee allows you to do, whether the end document would be a draft resolution or a report. Okay. Now, as I've already mentioned, that the paperwork depends on the nature and mandate of the committee. Hence, I feel it will be best if I don't overburden you with everything. Once you start attending the conference and see as to how you go about it and in what committee or allotted to, the executive board will explain it. So, like, since we have UNHRC in Hinduja MUN, and the mandate of UNHRC allows us to come up with a draft resolution, I'll be giving all a brief of what a draft resolution is. So, firstly, a draft resolution consists of two parts. One is the operative clauses, and the second one is the preambulatory clauses. So when you make a draft resolution, it starts with the sponsors. Now the sponsors are the countries who have made the draft resolution per se, who have given their full contribution to it. And the signatories are the countries who wish the draft resolution to be discussed in the committee per se, or yes, that is all. Now coming to the preambulatory clauses, the preambulatory clauses give an overview of what has been discussed during the course of the debate. There are a few preambulatory clauses which has to be addressed in a DR. Once the committee starts, Nipa and I will be forwarding the documents on the group, so no need to worry then. Yes. So a preambulatory clause in layman's term is what has been already discussed in the committee, and if you all have addressed any UN documents per se. Coming to the operatives are a very important part of the draft resolution, as in the operatives are the solutions to the agenda at hand. So while framing a operative clause, you have to be very specific to what your solution says, as to what is your solution, how do you propose that to be implemented, if there are any fundings involved for that, how will you make sure that your country gets the appropriate fundings, and so on. So operative clause is basically solutions to everything. And there are various other aspects to discussing a paperwork as well. And yes, that is it. Now at the end, where after the DR is made, you move into voting. Okay, voting of the draft resolution. Now, one thing you have to remember is that voting consists of one round, but you have 5 options as to how will you give in your vote. And at this point, your roll call comes into play. Now, if you have given your roll call as present and voting, you have 4 options. That is yes, no, yes with rights, no with rights. Yes is when you want the DR to be passed. No is you don't want it to be passed. Yes with rights is when you want it to be passed and when you want to give an explanation as to why it has to be passed. No with rights is when you don't want it to be passed and you are giving an explanation as to why you don't want it to be passed. And if you've given your roll call as only present, that is when you have 5 options. Yes, no, yes with rights, no with rights, and pass. Pass means you don't want to vote for it. Okay, so this has been the basics of a MUN and the rules of procedure as to how the committee will be flowing. If you have any doubts related to this, please do put it up in the chat box and I will be addressing it at the end. Another part which I forgot to mention in the ROP is points, a very important part. All right, so firstly, there are 4 points. I'll just keep it brief. Point of personal privilege, point of order, point of information, and point of inquiry. Point of personal privilege can be raised if you are facing any technical issues or you can't hear or delegate, that is when you raise a point of personal privilege. Now, you have to remember that a point of personal privilege is the only point that can interrupt a speaker. Rest, nothing can interrupt a speaker when they are giving their speech. Second point is point of order. Now, a point of order can be raised if there is an error made on the executive board side. That is, if there is an error made on the rules of procedure. Third one being point of information. Point of information is basically another name for yield to questions. And coming to point of inquiry, you can raise a point of inquiry if you want to ask the executive board as to how the committee is going to function further, or if you have any doubts on the rules of procedure per se. So these are the points in general. I believe I have covered the UN and USA rules of procedure and the basics as to what is a MUN and what is the relevance of it in current times. And at this point, I hand over the floor to Nipa, who will be addressing on how to research and the various aspects associated with it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Priyanka. Am I audible and visible perfectly?
Yes, Nipa, you can go ahead.
All right. If at any time you all think that I'm not audible or something, please let me know. So now, first, as you all are now aware what a MUN is, or basically how do we go about with a MUN, what are the procedures, why is it so important and everything. So, all right. So we need to understand now that how can participating in MUNs, be beneficial to you. That many people have been participating in MUNs, but we do not get the quality of performance, which is required. So today I'll be addressing that how should you participate, what is the approach that you need while participating in a MUN, which will be the most beneficial to you. So like what I intend to convey today is that until now we have had a very conventional, a typical, a very different perception and a very different approach towards MUNs. For most of the people who've been acquainted with the word MUNs or maybe Model United Nations, MUNs are a platform where you come, where you just debate, or a platform where you just put forward your opinions and that's it. But understand that isn't it. For me, MUNs have been an entirely a new world. And it's a world, trust me, where if you go in the correct direction, you will surely see yourself improving day by day. So participating in MUNs, it is a full package. It will boost your oratory skills, it will boost your researching skills, your listening skills, your drafting skills and everything. But if you delegate in the correct manner. So many students participate in MUNs like some, casual debate competitions. But guys, trust me, delegate with a perfect approach and that will be very beneficial to you. So today in the, the next 20 minutes, I'll be speaking upon how should you participate in MUNs, or how can participating in MUNs be beneficial to you the most, or in very simpler terms, how should you participate in MUNs, or what is the perfect kind of approach that you need while participating in MUNs. Now, before I go forward, I would just like to hear from all of y'all that for y'all, what is a MUN and what has, how has MUNs benefited y'all in your life, be it your academic life or your personal life or whatever, but how has it benefited you? Anyone, guys? Anyone from the secretariat?
Can I take the podium?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so as I have mentioned in my speech as well, I think it has completely turned it. It gives you a podium to brush up your personality somehow, because the very small elements of M1, for example, the lobbying part, where you talk to people, try to convince them, pitch them for your resolution. You have an opinion and you have to make believe those people that okay, this is the resolution that we have. That really helps you. So once you're out of that conference, 1 week you can't go out of that zone of that MUN. You're already formal in your language. I remember when I was a kid, I was in class 10th or 11th. After a 3-day conference, mistakenly sometimes I used to call my mom, hello mom. I had yeah, it happens. You're not out of that zone. You're into you speaking in formal languages. You're thinking that way. So somehow those small elements, that really affects you. Yeah, that's it, Nipa.
Yeah, Priyansh, I completely agree with you. It happened with me once that, our entire group had participated in a month. And now during the college lectures, our teachers had something really good. So we all started banging the benches and everything. So, it happens, you get into that mode completely. And that's true, that's correct. It completely, changes your personality. So now, I'll be addressing 5 points, 5 important things where you need to have a change and which will benefit you. Right. So first is that you need a change in the researching technique. Now, the major takeaway from a month is that it sharpens your researching skills. You know how to research, and but again, now that depends upon the way you research. So do not tend to randomly research upon the agenda. Now, not going into how delegates research or what they do, I'll give you a proper strategy and a proper plan of how should you research for a month. So your research for a month is primarily divided into 3 parts. First is your committee specific research, second is your country specific research, and third is your agenda specific research. For all of you all who are first time runners or maybe who are not experienced, you all can obviously make notes, or you all will be given a recording of this, but you all can surely make notes if you're interested, right? So now your first is your committee specific research. Now your committee specific research will basically comprise of all the information about the committee that you are delegating in. As for instance, if you participated in United Nations Security Council, now research about 4 things. First is the mandate of the committee. Mandate in the sense, why is the committee established? What is the main purpose of the committee? Now, understanding that will help you frame your solutions, will change your ideology, right? So first is your mandate, second is research about the powers of the committee, in the sense, what can the committee does the committee have the right to enforce a particular solution, or can the committee compel a particular nation to do something or not, these things, right? Now these things will again give you an idea the way you need to proceed in the committee. Now the third thing that you need to research upon is the members, that is, what nations are its members. Are there any observer countries? If in case of United Nations Security Council, who are its permanent members, non-permanent members, etc. And last thing you need to look upon is the organization. Like, is it a UN body or is it a regional organization like NATO or something? Again, this will help you determine the powers. So first, go about with the committee. Once you get your committee, look for the committee you are in, look for these 4 things, and you'll get a basic idea of how to go about with your research. Now, after that, go with your country specific research. Now, your country specific research includes all the information that you need about your allotted country. Now, it again includes 2 things. One is your country profile, and second is your country policy. Now, your country profile is basically all the general information that you need about your country, be it where it is located, who are its allies, who are its enemies, the kind of government, the kind of economy, everything else, right? And second is your country policy. Now the country policy also includes your foreign policy, but it is basically the stand of your country on the given agenda, that what does your country think should be done on the particular agenda, or is it in favor of any solutions, or what would it do in the given agenda, or something like that, right? So these are the 2 things that you need to look for your country. Third is your agenda specific research, and it is the most important part, and which includes the first, understand your agenda. First, understand the terms, the terminologies given in the agenda, define all the terms in the agenda, and understand each agenda represents a problem. Now, what you have to do is understand the problem and also understand the smaller problems associated with the agenda, and then research upon those problems specifically and generally, and look out for probable solutions to those problems, keeping in mind your committee as well as your country. Now, researching in this manner will give you an edge over researching, like be it for any purpose, be it a man or be it for any other purpose. So this is the way you go about with researching, and do not just randomly, find 2 3 articles, read it, cut, copy, paste stuff from there. Don't do that. Like, go about in this manner. So, is there any doubt or anything I need to clear upon when it comes to researching or change in the researching techniques? I'll just wait for 20 seconds if anybody has any doubt. All right. Looking at none, I'll go forward. Now, the second is that we need a change in the approach that we conventionally had. So now, considering the fact that in a month you represent a country and you have to accordingly speak upon the agenda. Now, what few delegates might end up doing is they'll find 4 to 5 research papers or academic papers maybe, and they'll completely cut, copy, paste stuff from there, and they'll make their speeches from those papers. Now understand that you might get the best of material from there, or you might deliver the best speeches, from such material, or you might give such speeches that other delegates might also comment OP in the comment section, or you might even win the best delegate or something. But that is not enough, right? That is not going to benefit you in the longer run. So now understand, the scope of a MUN. A MUN is where you come, you deliberate upon an international issue, where all the delegates, first discuss and deliberate upon the problem, its causes, its effects, and then they discuss the probable solutions to those problems, or in simpler terms, how can we solve the given problem, right? Now, your agenda, as I said, is basically a problem that the entire world is facing. Now, listen carefully, that rather than, cut copy pasting stuff from research papers, once you get your agenda, identify the major problem, then also identify the other minor problems associated, with the agenda. And first, read a lot of research papers, read articles, read academic papers, everything that you get on the agenda, get a basic idea of what the problem is. Now, after reading all this, you will understand what the problem is, and how different countries are either getting affected or either they are contributing to the problem. Now understand that the stuff that you have read until now, that forms only 40 to 50% of your speeches, and what is valued more is not the problems but the solutions that you give and the analysis that you have behind giving those solutions. Now what do I mean when I say your analysis, right? Now understand all the problems in the agenda, and then look out for the solutions to those problems, and then analyze whether the problems that you propose or you wish to propose, whether they can be implemented in all the countries, or whether are those solutions economically, politically, socially viable. Like, how will we implement those solutions, who will fund those countries, is it viable for the smaller countries, etc. So this is your analysis, and this is valued more than giving your problems. So basically what I mean is that in a MUN, have a solution oriented approach, and like, we know what the problem is, right? Everybody knows that. I can find out some article, I know what the problem is, what I need is a solution, right? So find out what the problem is and then find a solution to it. Now go to a MUN with this approach, with a solution oriented approach, and trust me, it will boost your analytical skills, will and it will improve the way you comprehend and understand the situation. This will give you a solution oriented approach, and it will also help you frame your speeches well, because you'll remove all the unnecessary stuff and your speeches will now contain relevant stuff containing good sensible solutions. So this is the kind of approach that you need to have in a MUN. Right now, are there any issues or any questions with regards to this? All right. Now moving forward, the third thing is a change in the speaking style. Now, once you've researched well, you also have a good approach, and now you're good to go with that. Now, the third thing is, if you research well, but if you do not deliver your stuff and your content well, that wouldn't make sense again. So now, there is a need to change the way you structure your speeches and the way you speak, right? Now, for the very first few conferences, for all those who are newcomers and who are not munners, I would just like to say that for the first few conferences, go very well prepared, and in the sense, draft your speeches well, keep them keep them with you in case you have public speaking of fear or something, if you have stage fear and all. So that will boost your confidence if you see yourself speaking very fluently. And right now, though, we have an added advantage, that is, everything is online. You literally have everything that you want in front of you, and just boost your confidence and just improve your public speaking skills. Now next, remember that when it comes to forming your speeches or structuring your speeches, remember that your speeches need to be well structured, and structured speeches can really grab the attention of the executive board members. In the sense, now what do I mean by structured speeches? I do not mean cut copy paste stuff in your speeches, because you get only 90 seconds to speak at once. So remove all the unnecessary stuff, and out of the stuff that you've read while researching, summarize it and write it in your own words. So the basic structure of your speech should be: first, address the problem and its effects, right? And second, after that, put forth your solutions, or the solutions to those problems. But again, understand, don't throw solutions randomly. Like, show your analysis behind those solutions. That is, how will you implement those solutions, or how will the underdeveloped countries implement it or something like that, who will be the stakeholders, etc. So this is the way you will structure your speeches. Next is the not deliver messy speeches. Don't keep your speeches messed up, and don't put a task to the executive board member that by you figure out what I've said, you mark me accordingly. Don't do that, you won't get your marks. What I mean is, keep your speech in point forms, in the sense, first I like to say that, second I like to say that, third I'll say that, and finally I like to conclude by saying this. Now it becomes very easy for the person listening, and it becomes easy to understand your speeches and what you're saying, and nobody will ever miss an important point that you say if you keep your speeches in point format, and very crisp and understandable, right? And lastly is, I just like to tell one thing, that before finalizing your speeches, read them once and decide for yourself that would a diplomat of a country, would he speak stuff like this in the United Nations conference? You will get your answer right away, and you'll understand that where are you falling short, and accordingly try to improve yourself. I mean, just don't have your speeches very basic, or something that might be easily googled or something. Show your analysis, right? And trust me, if you adhere to all what I've said today, you will see your speaking skills getting improved day by day. Now the another thing that I need to what I want to convey is the fourth point, which is your listening skills. Now everybody thinks that a months are more about your speaking skills, your researching skills, but trust me, a month will also improve your listening skills. I'll tell you how. Now if you go well researched on the day of the conference, you listen to the speeches delivered by other people. You listen to what they're saying, the way they're speaking, the way they research, the way they put forward their points, the kind of approach that they have, and this will boost your listening skills. Now what happens in months, I'll tell you. Today we are delegating, today we are participating in it, but once we get more and more experience, the delegates who are more and more experienced, they go on the other side of the bench, that is, they go for becoming the executive board members, or in your layman terms, they become the judges, right? So today you're here, tomorrow if you do well, you go on the other side of the table. Where you go there, you need good listening skills, you need to listen the entire day. So sharpen your skills right from here, listen to other delegates, listen to what they've said, address their points in your speeches, and that is how you will boost your listening skills also. Now the another thing that I want to tell you is where your drafting skills come, and as it has been addressed by Bianca, that is your draft resolutions and your paperwork. So at the end of every UN conference, there is a kind of paperwork, in the sense, it is basically a written report of all the solutions that have been discussed during the days of the conference. Now, although it is not compulsory for every delegate to contribute to the paperwork, many delegates opt not to contribute, but trust me, and I'd 100% recommend to you all that take efforts and make a draft resolution with other delegates. It will 100% help you sharpen your drafting skills. You already know what has been discussed in the 2 days of the conference, just you need to pen it down. Now you will get acquainted with the rules of drafting, how to draft resolutions in a manner which is not ambiguous, nor can anybody misuse it, but you are conveying it in the proper way and which is required, right? So this is about your drafting. Last is your lobbying. Now it becomes very difficult in an online conference to lobby in the sense just convincing the other delegates to do what you want them to do, or maybe convincing the other delegates to proceed in a particular manner. Now in an online conference, that again becomes very difficult, but although you can do it by chats or something like that. So lobbying, again, for people who think whether they are introvert, or maybe who cannot converse well with other delegates, this is the best way you can get that fear out, because right now you have no fear that I'll be judged, because you're talking to an unknown person, right? So lobbying, again, it will improve you, it will groom your personality very well, trust me on this. Basically what I mean today is, an MUN is a full package. It will help you sharpen all your skills that you need to have a good career. It will sharpen your speaking skills, your oratory skills, your drafting skills, listening skills, everything, right? So but trust me, if you're delegate in the good manner, in the correct manner, it will change you, it will change your perception, it will groom your personality and everything that you require. Also now, as most of the students are wanting to do masters, or wanting to do post graduations and everything from good universities, in abroad. Now these things, that winning an MUN or maybe participating in an MUN, being an executive board in an MUN, these things look very good on your CV. They look, they groom your CV well, and that is all you require when you go for a post graduation or something. So I'd highly recommend all of you all, to participate in months. And the best opportunity when your college itself is, organizing an MUN, is just participate in it. You have no fear to be judged. Nothing is there, and you will just sharpen all your skills. So I'd recommend, all of you all to participate in Hinduja Month. I and Bianca, we are vice chairing there at UNHRC. We also have an Indian committee, which is Lok Sabha. So all of them, people who are enthusiasts of the UN, you all can join HRC. All of them, who are looking forward to have Indian committees, you all can join Lok Sabha. And this is the best opportunity out there. And the registration link has been, put in the bio of your Instagram account, and it will also be shared in your WhatsApp groups or somewhere. So this is about an MUN. How do you go about with it? The way you research, the kind of approach you need to have, how do you need to structure your speeches, and basically how do you go about with your conference. Now, with all I have addressed, is there any doubt? Do you all need clarity on any point, or do you all want me to address any other problem that you all face while participating in an MUN? Is there anything you all want me to speak right now?
Yes, I would like to know that how many agendas can be set and what is the basic difference between agenda and motion.
What was the second question? What is the specific
difference between agenda and a motion?
Right. Okay, great question. Now, first I'll tell you, agenda, every committee, an organization, while conducting or while organizing an MUN, it will give you your agenda. In the sense, right now in HRC, we have the agenda of understanding the problems or the rights of, or deliberating upon the rights of ethnic minorities. So this is the agenda given to you all, and you all have to come and you all have to speak upon the agenda. Your agenda is basically the wider problem or the basic topic that you have to speak in the one day of your conference. Now I'll tell you the difference between a motion and an agenda. A motion is when you are proceeding with your committee. First, you will have the roll call. Second, you will go out with the general speakers list, or in basic human terms, layman terms, you take it as the introductory speech, right? After that is done, the chair or the executive board members will ask, are there any motions? In the sense, how do you want to proceed with the committee? Do you want to have a short discussion that is a moderated caucus on a specific topic, or do you want an unmoderated caucus? In the sense, do you want a break right now, or how do you want to go about? So motions are basically the delegates or the participants will will tell to the executive board that, yeah, we want to do this right now. That is, we want a short discussion. That is a moderated caucus on a topic. Now, once a delegate proposes, a motion, there will be a voting. Now, if you get a simple majority, your motion passes, and you will go forward with the moderated caucus. So this is a motion, that is how to go forward, or what will you do ahead. And your agenda basically is the topic of discussion, that what is the problem, why are we here, what are we going to discuss in the one day conference. Is that clear, or do you want me to touch upon it again?
No, it is very clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any doubts? Do you all want me to address any other point? All right. Okay, so I'll just go. Yeah, Bianca, so I'm done with my part. Then now we can begin the question and answers session. So all the participants here, please feel free to post all your questions, your queries. It might be a stupid question, it might be a very good question, anything. Just post it in the chat box and we'll address it. Okay, yeah. Hetvi, you have your hand raised.
Okay, so I believe we have a question in the chat box, which is Lok Sabha different than UNHRC? So firstly, there are a few aspects to how it is different. Lok Sabha, taking the first point into consideration, Lok Sabha is an Indian committee, whereas UNHRC is a United Nations committee. Second point, the topics that you discuss in Lok Sabha are basically bills that have been passed in the legislative. as in now in Hinduja MUN, you have discussion of the farm bills. So that is one thing which happens in Lok Sabha or any Indian committee per se. Whereas in a UN committee, you discuss global issues. Now, for example, we take the problems of ethnic minorities. This is not something which is happening in India itself, but is happening on a global level. So this is one aspect, one difference between Lok Sabha and UNHRC. Whereas you come to the research part of Lok Sabha and UNHRC, for Lok Sabha, you specify or you keep your research specific to the party you have been allotted to the representative who you will be uh, representing in the committee, or the bills that have been given for discussion per se. But, whereas in UNHRC or in a UN committee, you will be representing a committee, a country as a whole. So you'll have to know all the aspects of it. Alongside, you will also have to know who are the allies to your countries, who are the enemies to your countries, and how have they helped you throughout. Nipa, will you like to add anything to this?
Right, yeah. Another just a small thing that in Lok Sabha, since it is an Indian committee, you will be given or you will be representing a particular politician or maybe a person, right, who belongs to maybe the government or the opposition. Whereas in UNHRC, you will be representing a country in the United Nations Human Rights Council, and everybody will be given different countries and you will be representing the country. So that is since here you're a country, you have to adopt the ideology of the country. And in Lok Sabha, since you are a political person or you're a politician, you have to take the ideology of your political party. Like if you're the government, you're supposed to support the bill, or you're supposed to act because the government has itself brought the act. So if you're the government, you'll support it, and if they're opposition, you'll probably try to oppose it, or maybe get out some faults or something like that, right? So this is the basic difference, and everything else has already been addressed by Bianca. So yeah, that's it. Now we have another. Okay, so was this clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Right now, Rishikesh has posted a question. Rishikesh, I think so. There is a little confusion in your mind. I'll again clarify the three things, right? You said the first agenda is your overall broad topic. It is not a particular what we say maybe procedure or how we go about with it. Your agenda is the broad topic that you'll be speaking the entire day, not one section of your committee time. Secondly, a motion is again not a section or where you speak about something or something. It's just you propose a motion that we want to have a moderated caucus. Now again, a moderated caucus is having a small topic under the major topic. In the sense, if we have the topic of addressing the problems of ethnic minorities, we can have the smaller topic of the ethnic minorities of a particular country, or maybe be the Uyghur Muslims or in China, right? Addressing the problems of that, right? So that is the smaller problem within the bigger problem of your ethnic minorities, which forms your agenda. So your moderated caucus is discussing upon the smaller, narrower topic, and where it is given a specific time, or maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, where all the delegates discuss upon that, right? So a motion is where you propose that we want to have a moderated caucus now. So motion is not a section where you speak, or it is not a form of debate. And the third is lobbying, in the sense just mixing up with other delegates and convincing them that listen, I'm going to propose this solution, please do support it, or something like that. So that is lobbying, basically going and just telling them. So again, as it has been addressed by Bianca, your three sections when it comes to speaking are: first, your general speakers list, where you give your introductory speeches in normal terms, or where you just speak upon the agenda, anything under the sun that you want to speak about the agenda, anything, right? Be it your stand of your country, be it what you want to say, be it anything, right? Second is your moderated caucus. Moderated caucus, in the sense, I just I touched upon it right now, a smaller topic within the bigger topic, where you want to speak on it, speak on a particular topic. And third is your unmoderated caucus, which is your break time in normal terms, where you just discuss, you just talk with your other delegates informally. And since it is unmoderated caucus, it means it is not moderated by the chairs, and you can do whatever you want to do. Just maintaining the decorum of the committee, you can do whatever you want to do. So those are the three sections when it comes to a MUN. Bianca, would you add up anything?
Sorry to interrupt, guys. I'd just like to add something. I'm getting questions here asking about the committee-specific ROPs. I'll just like to inform students that we'll have a training session right before the conference, which will have an ROP session for committee-specific thing, and for the Lok Sabha and UNHRC, which will be taken care by the chairs that we have for different committees. So don't worry about that. In this session, we are particularly looking forward to have an outlook regarding the MUN in general. So please don't worry about it. We'll have a training session for all the registered delegates when it comes to committee specific ROPs. That's it. Go ahead, guys.
Okay. So I believe Nipa has covered almost anything. One thing I would like to add is that what is the time allotted for motion and lobbying? Or delegate, one thing you have, sir, one thing you have to remember is that while raising a motion, the maximum time you can raise a motion is for 20 minutes. But after that 20 minutes has elapsed, you can always raise a motion of extension, as I already mentioned. And the motion of extension would be half of the total time that has been raised before. Sir, we believe we have answered your question. Do you have any follow-ups to it?
Is there any questions, guys?
All right, I can see a question by Pawan Singh. The question is that are there any limits to the number of motions that a person can raise, that a country can raise at UNHRC? So no, sir, you can raise any number of motions, be it 10 motions, be it 20 motions. But what happens is that at one time when the executive board is asking that are there any motions, imagine if 3 countries have raised their hands, be it India, US and UK, right? Now 3 countries have raised their hand. All 3 of them will first give their motions. Like India will say that I want to have a moderated caucus, like the delegate wants to have a moderated caucus on the topic ABC. Then US will say that I want to have a moderated caucus on the topic XYZ, and again UK will also have its own motion. Now all the 3 motions will be voted upon. Now there are high chances that out of these 3 motions, one will get passed. Well, so after a particular time, in a one-day conference, you have say 7 to 8 motions, majorly. But you can have n number of motions. There is no limit, but motions do get passed quickly. So there is no need to keep on passing motions and introducing motions and all. So, but there is no limit to this. Again, Sharda, the procedure will be explained. And yeah, are there any questions, any more questions? Or should we, wrap it up?
Okay. So how does UNHRC end? As I mentioned in the rules of procedure, the mandate of UNHRC allows us to form a draft resolution at the end. So mostly we will be moving towards a draft resolution and we will be putting that to vote. That is according to the mandate of UNHRC as to how do we end. But at any point of time, if we feel that the committee needs to have more of discussion rather than its focus on the draft, or rather than its focus on the draft resolution or the paperwork, by the discretion of the executive board, we will make sure that we allot you more time for discussion per se, and not to divert your attention towards the paperwork itself. So that totally depends as to how it ends. That totally depends as to how all of you are performing and how the committee has succeeded towards the end. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, this is all we had. Priyansh, do you want to do you want us to touch upon something?
No, guys, I think thank you so much for your presence here. I think it was very informative, and I don't think so we have left upon anything when it comes to MUN. Is there anyone who is experienced and feels we have left any element of MUN that you feel that we need to address here, please feel free. You have the floor, and then we'll sum it up.
Okay,
I think
I'll move forward now. Thank you, Nipa and Bianca. I'm sure everyone here knows a little in depth about the significance of the MUNs. I hope that all your doubts have been answered. Also, we would like to inform you that we have training sessions dedicated to the delegates. You can find registration link in the bio of our Instagram page, and don't forget to follow us on for further updates. Lastly, I would like to thank our beloved principal ma'am, vice principal ma'am, and faculty members. Also, I thank Nipa and Bianca for taking out time and addressing the students, and to all the people who have attended the meet. Thank you, guys.
So best of luck to all these students. I think it was indeed, a kind of, even I felt that some kind of, formal kind of thing is going on. So it was really great to see our students talking this way, and the articulation, the words, the confidence that you have. It was really very nice. Very good initiative by Antra ma'am. Best of luck to all of you. To Antra
thank you,
ma'am and to
thank you
all
so
the
much, Jagrati
students.
ma'am.
I would again
Priyansh,
say
great.
this. I will
I think
again
this
mention this,
hidden
Priya.
talent of Priyansh was, I don't know where it was. Now it has come out, Priyansh.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good, very good, dear.
I will once again correct to all faculty members. This is just, I have started, no work I have done for this. This is entirely done by all the students. And Priyansh is taking the whole lead. I am just answering yes, no on the WhatsApp. That's it. And I'm
That
so
is what we
happy
need, ma'am.
that
All your support.
you're self-dependent. Very good.
No, but very good initiative. I think we should have done this long back. I think, but even in this COVID, kind of thing, when we are not meeting, people, and still all these things are happening in our college, and it's like, it's a great thing for us, great achievement for Hinduja. Yeah, best of luck to the entire team.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, I think Priyansh, Sita ma'am wants to speak something.
Yeah. Please, Sita ma'am, you have the floor.
If any other faculties wants to speak, you can just allow them to unmute.
Yes,
And
please.
then we can wind up. Yeah. Yes, Sita ma'am.
Hello everyone. It was amazing to listen. Like Jagrati ma'am said, we were really stunned to know that they are first year students. The way you all have been groomed up, it's excellent. And we strongly believe that for all the Hinduja students over here, there is an excellent opportunity, and best wishes from our end. And we really hope that students make the best out of this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I think we can wind up now.
Okay. Tarang, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.